right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 19. You're going to notice a little difference here. We don't have Sam Lee with us. He's actually on travel and vacation on the other part of the world over in South Korea and Japan. So, hoping he's having a great trip. But you've got a guest fill in today. We've got my wife and life partner, Mary Chalupa. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you.
Yeah, so kicking off episode 19 here, we're going to just hop right into it. We're going to cover what it's like for us working together in a business, our personal life, and how that all comes together. And then we're going to go into, in the second half of it, how we integrate AI into both the personal life with our family individually, and then also how we leverage it in the business in different ways. Mary has her own areas in the business that she's responsible for and how she leverages it. And then for me, it's a little bit more on the technical side. We're going to throw out some fun tips and tricks. So you'll want to hang on to the very end for some of the latest stuff we've been doing with AI. And we hope you enjoy this episode. All right. So to get it started, we were actually listening to a podcast that you had sent me the other day. Yesterday it was, and it was about entrepreneurship. And I thought it was a really awesome podcast. What was the name of the podcast for our viewers? And what was the overall topic and gist of that? Would you mind going into it?
Yes, it was one of my favorite podcasts, the Skinny Confidential, him and her podcast. And they had on, I think it's the CEO or editor in chief of Entrepreneurial magazine, Jason Pfeiffer. And it was just such a good episode. It was, as somebody personally, for me, I was one of those people who said, my story that I told myself was, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I want to stay as far away from that as possible. And so now that we are doing that, I've had to break through a lot of mindset, just challenges that I'm working on daily. And this podcast was really good just about what it means to be an entrepreneur. And one of the main things was the word adaptability, and just that you have to be willing to make changes. And when changes come, it's how you react to them, not looking at them as losses, but looking at them as opportunities.
Yeah, there was a few points that really resonated with me, and the big one was when they highlighted whenever there's change, entrepreneurs tend to see the opportunity and not the fear and anxiety associated with change. And of course, one of the big themes here on the podcast is AI. That's a huge change, societal change, probably going to be the biggest societal change that'll impact our generation and future generations. And I see it day to day. We both see it day to day with people that we talk to. Is there's a camp that are in the kind of fear and skepticism zone, and then there's a camp that are in the opportunity zone. And really, that podcast, listening to it really resonated with me because we've changed and pivoted our business a little bit to follow our passion area of my engineering and entrepreneurial brain, coupled with the capabilities of AI, and also the marketing and sales flair and just how we manage the work and our lives with AI. And Mary's integrated it as well into her life pretty extensively. So both of us from different angles have gone into that opportunity mode. And then the second piece that I took away from the podcast was that most people, when they're building or working on something, they think horizontally, versus entrepreneurs and folks who are building and growing are typically thinking vertically. And what that means is if you're writing a book or making a podcast or creating content on LinkedIn or other social media platforms, it's not about just creating that and then moving on to something else and then moving on to something else. It's really focusing in on what you're doing and how do those building blocks stack to grow, because there might be, the first building block that you need to get started, marketing and getting leads, might not be the thing that you want to do forever or even what your company is based upon. But you have to build a module in your business to get leads. Then you have to have a module for sales. And so everything that you do can stack. And the one quote in there was when I talk to my friends about writing my book, they ask me, what's next? What are you going to do after you finish the book? Whereas business owners and entrepreneurs ask the subject in this podcast about his book, they say, okay, well, how are you going to leverage that? And what are you stacking that on? Or how does that give you leverage and grow your business? So entrepreneurs are really thinking about what everything that I'm doing is helping to grow and stack in a vertical, not just do one thing, check it off the list, move to the next thing, and they may not be related. So those are my two big takeaways from the
Yes.
beginning of it.
And I think another one, I think it was this podcast, was he talks about how when you're going through a lot of change, the mind thinks that you're losing something.
Yes.
And so I definitely could relate to that because I feel when I'm going through change, my mind tends to default to like, okay, what am I losing? Am I losing time? Am I losing? My main thing is time, like time that I should be doing something else. And so I think entrepreneurs are able to look at change and almost get excited about it. Like you said, they're looking for the opportunity and not the loss.
Yep.
So it's just a shift in that mindset.
Yeah, big time. And that's the other thing is when we go into something new or a change, the brain by default is, I think it was called loss aversion, where our default mode is to kind of go into self protection and to try and avoid things that could be potentially risky or create loss, right? Like starting to look at things of like, oh, well, what if this happens and we lose money on this or we lose our house? Like these things, that's where your brain is naturally programmed to go because of evolution and trying to stay alive, right? Survival mechanisms. And so entrepreneurs and people who are going to seize opportunities and maybe take some risks. The point there is instead of seeing and feeling that loss aversion, you actually reprogram it into excitement of something new and the opportunities to come, and then consistently visualizing the positive outcomes from what's there and what can be. And that's one of the really big differentiators from a lot of successful entrepreneurs is being able to see the opportunity and then continue forward on the positive potential outcomes, even though it's going to be hard, it's going to take a lot of effort, instead of just saying, well, I'm not even going to start because these things, and I'm afraid to lose this stuff and I can't take this risk. You have to get to that point to take the risk and then stay positive in the moment to keep proceeding forward.
And I think this podcast relates so much, not only to like mindset, personal life, entrepreneurship, but AI, because I don't know the last time that something has come at such a fast pace that's going to impact the majority of people. And when we talk to people, I notice that first there's a large amount of people that say, like, I don't really want to hear about it. I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to do it. And that's the change, like the fear of the change. And then when you take like a small piece, for example, we were talking to somebody that, isn't very tech savvy, but they love to cook. And so when we told them that who is your favorite, what's your favorite cookbook to read? Who is that author? Let's plug it into AI and see what kind of meal plan they would make for the entire week. And also let's have them create your grocery list. And within less than a minute, all of that information is presented to them. And all of a sudden the light bulbs are going off, the energy. And it's like, this is so cool. Like that sped up my time so quickly. And also gives me so many more ideas for my week. I don't have to go, flip through the cookbook. Of course, if you still enjoy and want to do that, but it's just another alternative of something that that person didn't think about. But then what we're starting to notice with businesses is they get excited, then there's a whole other aspect of security and their minds start going like, well, what does this mean for security? Because everything's happening so quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And there's not, through my conversations with a lot of different folks in especially engineering, technical SMB space, there's not a lot of people out there, whether it's on the IT or the managed service provider side of things. A lot of them aren't up to speed fully on IT or on AI and how that impacts security and privacy. So what we've done at Obnova is started to actually build out the programs and the materials to help educate people. So I'm now, when I'm going into an engineering company, we're not only meeting with their leadership team in the engineering company, we're bringing in their managed service provider, their IT folks to start showing them the resources so they can go out and start implementing and putting those frameworks and the different tools and settings and data cleanup that needs to happen. So we're there as a partner hand in hand with them. But I think there's another point to this is that the companies that are, I am networked with who are outside of engineering and technical side that are like going full in on this. They're actually getting this in implemented. They're using AI. In one case, they're using the Google workspace. So they're using Gemini and all of the Google tools. And I've actually gotten feedback from them of like, wow, a few interesting things that came of turning on Gemini within their business so that it has access to their whole Google Drive, all their files is two things. One is it found a bunch of long lost kind of artifacts that they couldn't find and that are really valuable and useful, but they're just sitting somewhere and nobody could remember the file name, the contents, where it was stored, when it was last edited, right? There's these files that just get lost because as humans, we had to be the map to figure out where all those files were all the time. And you might have like a search function, but it was very limited. And now using AI, and if you're asking questions, it's going to go find the most relevant, best sources in your data stack. And so in this case, it actually found some really valuable resources that have been long lost, but now resurfaced. And the better part of this is there's a link to it. So now they know exactly where it is. Now, that's the exciting part. On the flip side, they actually had some instances where their AI chat interface, like a chat bot interface or an agent interface, had actually surfaced and found like some confidential information, and it actually was able to highlight it to them and say, hey, like this is seems pretty sensitive. What do you want to do here? And so that's the part where most medium to larger size businesses, that's the part they're afraid of, is having a person who's at a certain level having access to higher level or more confidential segregated data and information through the co-pilot or the chat gpt or whatever it is that you link up that data to, because it's going to go find it. And if you don't have it structured, labeled, and then you have your user groups and permissions set up right correctly, then you do have the chance for a kind of data leak within your company. That's it is important there. But I think what I'm seeing is the companies who are going out, getting started and seeing these things and then correcting it, they're light years ahead, because the people who are afraid and are have to try and get everything perfect before they go, they're still spinning their wheels, and they're going to be spinning their wheels for the next 6-12 months. Meanwhile, others are moving forward. They are saying, okay, there might be a little bit of risk, even internal, it's just internal, of having some documents maybe get shared that shouldn't be. And I'm not saying that you want to go in blindly to this, but you want to be educated. You need to take a first pass at it, set up some usage policy. And then it's really about educating the people. This has always been true. It's not, we don't need to have amnesia here. It's like the biggest protection against any type of phishing scam with emails or anything online, viruses, all this stuff, infiltration into your business. The biggest protection layer has always been your people and your employees, and training and educating them. And so I think it's a big disservice to just roll out a Microsoft Copilot for an organization without any training or some online generic bland training, instead of using a trusted partner or somebody internally to come in, meet with people in small groups, give them the tool set and the knowledge to how they can use this, get them some quick wins, and then also tell them about the power and the potential of this, and how you don't want to be putting secure stuff out on a free version of ChatGPT through your browser. Like, there's simple things, and if you hire the right people and you have the right culture, you should be able to trust them with that. And so your people are your biggest defense against privacy and security and data breach and loss and leakage. So that's the thing, is one, you got to get started, and two is you got to train and educate your people. Like these are the two big things that keep resurfacing. So how about, that's probably a good segue as far as how you're using AI in personal life and business, because that looks different than how I'm using it maybe on the more technical side for engineering and all the other tasks. So why don't you tell us how you're using it and some of the highlights that you've had recently?
I use it a lot for parenting, a lot. And I wish I would have had it more when I was like a new mom and just have so many questions, because I think you Google a lot. And one of the features wasn't I wasn't used to using, but it's there's a feature on ChatGPT that you click it. Mine's, I call it Soul. You can name it anything, right?
Well, they
Or
have
they
their
have like
profile. They have a set, maybe 8
set,
profiles,
okay, so
and you
there's
select.
set names. You select which one. And I can just easily, by clicking a button, talk to it. And the more that I've spoken to it, the more it knows about me. And I give it directions. So, like some mornings, you are my parenting coach, or you are an expert pediatrician specializing in rashes, or you are Dr. Becky from The Good Inside and I need some advice. And with parenting, it's just changing all of the time. And so having just somebody else, even sometimes if it's like, okay, maybe that didn't feel like I was talking to a friend or venting, it is somebody else to just give me a level headed answer. And also just some ideas when I'm tired and I'm like, I don't know what to do. We've used it when the girls are having tantrums and I'm just like, I don't know I'm just done. I'll say, Soul, can you talk with Sadie? Can you talk with Lexi? And they know what that is. And I'm bringing in more technology like into their world. But at the same time, like that's the way the world is going. And it does, in some ways, I see this calmness come almost as if like when you're at school, some kids won't behave the way that they would behave at home. And I want them to always feel like so comfortable at home, but having that come in and kind of catch them off guard a little bit, almost like when you have toddlers and sometimes you have to redirect or distract them. That's what I feel like this does.
Mhm.
I don't use it all the time, but it definitely redirects them from, if they're fighting over who's sitting in what car seat,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing with that we've learned with newborns, infants, toddlers is the redirect and having another asset or tool when you've kind of reached your limit to have a resource or a tool to pull on that can then reframe their mind, reframe their situation. It's also, we don't use it all the time. So it's something that's new and fresh and they're kind of intrigued by it. So a lot of times we do get a generally good response and kind of a change in their state because we're integrating something new. And a lot of folks out there who have been or are parenting right now will know that one of the biggest things you can do to deal with like tantrums and just overall when they're not wanting to do something or they're whining, all these different things that can occur, the biggest thing you can do is just like make a change. So change the scenery, give them a hug, or bring in another person. So that's where it's fun. If you have other people around, then you can have somebody else come in, like a grandma or grandpa, and they can talk to them. But this is a resource that we have where when we're on our tanks are on empty and we don't have anybody else to pull from, or we've tried everything else, it is something that we can go to, and we've generally seen pretty good results. And it helps not only with the kids, but for me, it's also helped give me ideas of stories to tell or kind of spark that creative kid style brain and activate that. Because, with the business and with our relationship, we're working at a very high adult level, highly technical. And so sometimes it can be hard to step back and go into that more creative, kid friendly brain and communicate with them on their level. And having Saul really helps reset me as well as interact with the kids at times. So yeah, and then how about on the work front? What are some of the ways in which you've used it? And typically you're kind of on the marketing and sales side, a lot of creative stuff, and we've integrated it quite a lot. And so you're typically using Chat GPT for most of the stuff that we're doing, and then we utilize Claude within the business as well. But I would say, what are some examples offhand recently?
I would say just learning how to do things and also just coming up with like a schedule for my day.
Yeah,
And I'm still working on that.
yeah,
I'm like, that's my biggest thing is like just going to it almost just as my teacher, like to learn something. I
yeah.
mean, so similar to when I would search something in Google, except this just gives me so much more. I just feel better, improved information, and it's all in one place. And I like that. I'm not clicking the Google search and then going to a page and then trying to find it and go back through the history. It's all right there. And then I can choose whether to save that conversation.
Mhm.
And I like that aspect of it. And the other one I like is making it think like a person. Like if there's an author I'm reading or a type of personality, it helps to get that perspective of what, especially if there's like somebody that you enjoy following or listening to. you can get, for marketing, if you like Gary Vee, you can get it in his tone and kind of how he would think. And it's almost like at all times having a coach in your back pocket.
Yeah, definitely. We use it heavily for that. And I think the key there is to identify the people that are kind of your North Star people, your icons, role models, people that mentors that you want to follow and kind of mimic. If you know those people, or you can use AI to help you find those people, but we generally find them through books that we read or just research, podcasts, all of that. And then really you have to give the LLM AI the personality, and then that will get you markedly better results when you're working with it, whether on a coaching level, a creative level, technical level. Setting it up with that profile and giving it the context and the personality really helps dramatically. And I see that across the board. So there's like marketing, sales, life coaching, business, entrepreneurship. But then also for me as an engineer, I have textbooks of information, and those engineers out there who have honed in on specific niches. You'll know the people in the industry who are on the blogs, who are writing the papers, who you kind of always go to their stuff to reference their textbooks, their information. And then if you give that personality into ChatGPT or into Claude or Copilot when you're prompting it, you're going to be amazed at the results that you get back, versus if you're just going in and being really general about it. It's too much of like a shotgun approach if you're not being specific, prompting it in the right way, because it has so much information to reference and knowledge base that if you don't narrow it down, you're going to get hit or miss results. It's going to be sporadic and spotty versus really narrowing it down. So I think that's a really good point. And maybe shifting gears here as we're coming in, we've got about 10 minutes or so left, just under, for the podcast. I'd love to get your opinion and your thoughts on working with your partner, your spouse, husband and wife, working in a business, and what that's been like for you over the last 2+ years, while also raising two kids under the age of 5 during that time. What would you say to people out there? Kind of the highlights, some of the things that maybe came up that you didn't think would have ever come up. What are your thoughts there?
It's definitely challenging. And I think if I, right now, I mainly would identify as like a stay at home mom with my kids, but I also do, contribute to the business. I think it would be easier if I was contributing more. So if my hours were more consistent and dedicated to the business, I think it would be a lot easier to work together just because of time, that we would have more time. I think the hardest thing is like having the limited time, and there's certain things that I have to talk to you about, like with the girls, like, oh, this happened today, or we have to do this. And they're just top of mind. And I'm just like spitting them out, but really we only have an hour to talk about work. So like prioritizing, that's the hardest thing, especially working out of our home, is like the separation of the home life, talking about our kids. And then also, like, if we're just like having like a day that we're just like annoyed, it's okay, well, we got to come in and like work. So, like, separating all of those things is definitely challenging. I don't know, how is it for you? But I also think it's like beautiful. Like, I love, you're my best friend. So like I get to work with you.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of like pros and cons to it. And it's like a dance. And I feel like you are improving every week, and you're like learning the steps of like how to do it, how to navigate it. And I think that we've gotten a lot better. And so it's just like constantly like every week you're just learning new steps and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that one thing you mentioned there that reminded me of something that I've read over time, and that a lot of people who own their own businesses or in entrepreneurship, this will resonate with them, is that starting your own business and going into entrepreneurship is going to be the biggest self-development exercise you could ever do. And I would say starting a business and also having kids, like both those two events, are going to force upon you the biggest self development changes or opportunities for that. And so, over the last 2+ years, as we've been embarking on this journey, we've both made significant personal and professional changes, advancements. We've probably read more books in the last 2 years than we read for the prior 10 plus years together. And it's wild because we've done that while raising two kids with a dog, training for different athletic endeavors. So, we've really gone through a big change. And so, as we're both going through that, there's definitely challenges because it's kind of challenging enough for each individual person to go through those changes. But then I would say, then we have a relationship, friendship, marriage, kid, all of that. We're all evolving at the same time. So sometimes I would say, like, a lot of times we're in sync and we're getting more in sync and we feel it growing in that momentum and energy. But then there are times where we're just like a little bit out of sync, and we're figuring out ways now to work through that, kind of identify what's going on internally, and then exercises or ways in which we can kind of reset and resync, so that way we're growing together in that upward fashion and not nobody's really getting left.
Yeah. And I think you've changed so much in the past few years. And I mean, your self development journey has just been like exponentially growing. And I feel like sometimes mine is like I'm going like slower steps. And so I still think that I am, but my focus is so much like on the girls. And you are a lot more focused at this time on the business. And so I think that can also be challenging in a relationship. But I think it's just knowing that the person that you're with is like willing to grow with you and like accept and be accepting of those changes that you're making. I mean, I'm fortunate because all those changes are positive,
Right.
but it also is like when you've known somebody for so long, because we've been together now, but
Yeah.
15 years.
Coming up on, yeah.
So it's like all of the changes when you think we were so young when we met, and then, that person's making changes, but also your mind kind of defaults back to like how they were for so long. And so it's exciting, it's great, but it also comes sometimes with like definitely like butting heads and just different things. But all of your changes have been, I would say, for the better. Like I never would have imagined that you would have a podcast or be
Yeah.
on Instagram. Never.
Yeah, a lot of changes that have just come naturally over time through the progression of really us deciding to start our own business and have our family. I would say one thing when you're going through that reminded me is like and we've had a lot of discussions about this lately, is like when you're uncomfortable, and this relates back to the change, is when you're uncomfortable because you're either trying to make a change or a change is coming kind of forced upon you because of society or technology. There is this sense of like fear, and you're going to be a little bit hesitant. And the way that we've started to lean into that and kind of reframe it is that when you're having those kind of emotions and feelings well up, that means that that's probably the direction you need to go, and kind of double click on that instead of traditionally. And I think a lot of folks who maybe are complacent and just in their spot and they're content with that, that's fine. But if you're looking to grow, obviously that's what we're about on the podcast. You really have to get comfortable leaning into those fears and overcoming those fears and pursuing things that are maybe a little bit painful, push through the fear, all these things, like some friction there. That is actually an indicator that you're on the right path. And then the rewards will come after, once you've kind of committed and pushed through those things. And so a lot of it is just making sure that you stick with it. And for us growing together, like when we do have friction or points where, we're not seeing eye to eye on things, I think we're now viewing that as like, okay, we need to both go back, review like why that's happening, and then figure out how we can overcome it, change it, and change course for the better to realign and come together.
And I think the biggest thing is like recovering quickly. Like I can be like such a pain and I know it, but like I can recover. We both recover quick. So like I think that you can like have a disagreement, getting the girls out. There's just so many moving parts, getting the girls out the door, something going on with our dog. Like everybody knows, if whether you have kids, a pet, or if you don't have kids yet, there's always just things that are going on. And just being able to like recover quickly and then also find like the right timing to have like that discussion
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, that's probably one of the harder things, is right, finding the right time where you have not only the duration of time, but the energy. And I don't really look at it just as time, but it's this equation of time multiplied by energy. That's the kind of metric that I use when I'm working on tasks or we're having discussions, because you could have a long time, but if you're drained and you need to sleep, then you're not going to be productive in that conversation. Versus if you have a short time, but you're high energy and you're aligned, then you can actually get more productivity out of that time energy segment. So yeah, it's been fun and such a great and beautiful self-development journey. It's not without its hurdles, but yeah, I think that it has helped and grown our marriage, and we've grown together so much more over the last 2 years than we did ever before that, just because we have to be continuously in communication and managing everything around the house, the kids, which Mary does an amazing job with, obviously Hudson, our dog, and then the business as well. So it's a lot of moving pieces, but it's really forced us to come together and communicate in a much stronger way than we did in the past, I think.
Definitely. And we still have to work on it every day.
Yeah, and we're still working on it every day. Well, we're just at time here, and
one quick thing
yeah,
on just to shout it out because you might not, but
yeah,
Tuesday, October 28th, we're starting an accelerator program that Shane's going to be running. And so if you are interested in AI, it doesn't really matter what level you are. All levels will find this so helpful. It's going to be an 8-week program starting October 28th. And Shane has put so much into this. Like I said, I've known him 15 years, and his passion for AI is, it's just so exciting to be a part of. So if you want more information on that, you can DM Shane on Instagram. You can send support at Obnovit. We can put that in the show notes probably.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes.
If you have any questions or interest in joining the program, it's going to be really exciting, and it will definitely accelerate you with your AI journey.
Yep, it's a transformational experience with a community of other like-minded people to go from maybe baseline zero or minimal knowledge expertise all the way through advanced usage, as well as developing, whether it be for your personal life or your business, to develop a roadmap, a plan, and some pilot projects to get it rolled out and start generating ROI with AI. So we are very excited. We're a little over 2 weeks out from that. And yeah, if there's any interest, find me on LinkedIn, Shane Chalupa, Chalupa, or on Instagram at Shane Chalupa. And again, you can always send an email to support@obnovit.com. Thanks, everybody, and hope you enjoyed.